Anything they want to share with the group? Nothing? No? All right. Okay. Well, let's get started then. And folks, if you want to hear us, if you're online and you want us to hear you, you have to unmute yourself or just use the chat function in a Zoom. Okay, with that, why don't we turn it over to Carl so he can enlighten us about his work on IOLEX.
Well, thank you for inviting me to this meeting, and I have prepared some slides, so why don't I start with the slides?
Go ahead. Just need this.
Okay, so can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is about not so much the technology per se, but what I've been doing for the last 5 years and how we ended up coming up with an approach, an innovative approach to the technology. So bear with me. The way I'm going to present it may be not so much a typical technology presentation, but let me start. I've been embedded inside a law firm for the last 5 years. This is the law firm, Yulchon. I've been embedded inside Yulchon, and I initially joined as a senior advisor, but then I started Yulchon because I saw an opportunity for a digital service arm of a traditional law firm. And then we begin to win all the awards. And then I met a lady by the name of Crystal Lalim at Credit Suisse Hong Kong. She's one of the lawyers there, one of the senior lawyers. And when I met her, she said, "Oh, we know about you already." So I said, "How come do you know?" And she said, I was one of the judges for the one of the awards that you won. And so the natural question was, why did you pick us? And the answer was, you guys do the applications for clients of law firms, not for the lawyers of the law firms. And that's when we began to realize that we're doing something very innovative. And then because of all the awards, we got invited to London for a innovative lawyer summit. And it was a little bit scary because, you know, London was a big stage for us. But then we ended up striking up a conversation with a law firm, Pins and Masons, and then they wanted to work with us by sharing their content on construction arbitration related service. And so this is the culmination of our collaboration for the last year. And so we are providing the technology platform, and they're giving us the legal content. And this thing comprises of 12 gigantic flowcharts. And at the beginning, I was wondering how many people we need to staff for this project. And it actually turned out that one paralegal ended up doing the whole work without any additional resource. And that's when we begin to realize that we have something really special that is amenable for an accurate and fast digitalization of traditional legal content. And so today I'm here talking about that. We are in some sense much it's a young effort, but in terms of our foundation for our effort, it's very serious. And this July we co-published a paper with Eric Hamburg of CSAIL MIT. In fact, Eric was the one that encouraged me to reach out to Stanford Law School CodeX program. So that's how I got to find out about that what we were doing was actually computational law. Yeah. Anyway, so here I am, and One of the things that we've been doing is we're just talking about, just like I am doing now, talking about our footprint. One of the advantages of being embedded in a law firm for a very long time is that it's an environment that is rich in problems. And outside the law firm, there's a lot of solutions. And we noticed that it's very hard to make a bridge between the solution-rich environment that's outside the law firm and the problem-rich environment that is inside the law firm. And my being a technologist and being embedded inside a law firm has led to a lot of insights, which I'm hoping to share with you today. We just hosted Korea.
Carl, just I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but we typically give our speakers about like 15 minutes or so to present, and then leave about the same amount of time for people to ask questions. So
okay, just, sure. So I speed up then. How much time do I have?
You have 22 minutes.
Okay.
But
okay.
including the discussion. So
sure,
maybe
sure.
maybe 10 minutes for your presentation or so.
Understood. Understood.
Okay?
Thank you.
But we'd be very curious to see what you're doing.
Yeah. So in order to bridge the gap, and this is a puzzle. I've had conversation with a huge legal information company CTO, and he was saying that we have all these solutions, but lawyers wouldn't use it. And sometimes they say, well, I would like you to provide this service, and then they would say, we already have that. We delivered it to you a couple of years ago. And so and that's the resistance that I encountered. And what we need to do in order to bring about a technology innovation, we had to actually work on an analog innovation in the background. And just to give you a summary of what we have done was to change our conception of the Unichon law firm's core values. So there are excellence, innovation, and commitment. Excellence used to mean that we are excellent at what we do, but if you look at the bottom of the screen, it has changed to we're excellent at what you do. You mean client, and this means that we have revamped our services from client's perspective. Innovation used to mean that we have the best ideas, but now we say our best ideas come from clients. One manifestation of this is that our applications for clients are typically in version number 2000. And the technology firm can bring the version number from 0 to maybe 15, but then from 16 to 2000, it's all about domain expertise and clients changing legal and regulatory environment. And so by keeping up with clients' demands, you get up to version 2000. And then once you get to version 2000, clients love it. And that creates a steady relationship with the client. The commitment used to mean that we're committed to giving you the best advice. But now it means that we help you to operationalize and institutionalize our advice at your firm. So by changing the parameters of the legal service, the dialogue about a conversation about how to digitize the content naturally came into the center of conversation. So put it another way, Wozniak used to sell these schematics for Apple II to people who wanted to build computers, and then Steve Jobs said, build the final product and you'll increase the volume and margin. And that's basically what we're doing. We have various stakeholder analysis, but why don't I skip over, and this is the most important page. This is all about scalable domain expertise. So when you think about the total time and cost that it takes to create a legal application, one of the biggest time sinks is the communication from the lawyers of their expert knowledge to the programmer. And a lot gets lost. And the situation is even worse when the client, a corporate client, is trying to communicate their needs directly to the programmer. But in practice, you find out that there's a lot of that going on. So what we have done was to create a intermediate language that the lawyers who are not programmers can use to specify exactly what they want to do. And then that language is interpreted in real time. And so basically the programmers are not visible in this cycle of getting a feedback and then modifying the application according to what the users want, and then deploying it back to the population. So at the top of this chart is the analog service, which is basically an abstract legal advice. This is not in a form that's operationalizable. So oftentimes you see that the hundreds of people who can potentially trigger regulatory or legal violation end up raising the issue to a small number of legal experts within the company. And then there's not enough time, and the trend is that there's more, the number of regulations and the amount of penalties are increasing. And so a lot of end users of the legal services are concerned about the rising cost and the lack of scalability of existing legal services. And so the way we are approaching this thing is to have the in-house counsels as well as the trained lawyers at law firms, and we've produced a half dozen lawyers who are conversant, fully conversant on ILX, and they can actually pick up a phone from the client. One of the international law firm managing partners asked me, like, what do you do when you deploy an application to client, and then they call you and say that yellow button on the top right side does not work? Who do they call? Do we need to have a legion of after-service people? And the answer was no. The lawyer that covers the client picks up the phone, and then that lawyer should be able to make that work and then deploy it within a matter of tens of minutes or an hour. And that's what we do.
Carl,
Yeah.
what would be a good example for one of the applications that you built, and how does your platform help people build those applications? I think what you said is very interesting about the name of the game is to scale human expertise, domain expertise. How specifically are you doing this?
Right. So yeah. So let me see if I have a slide. So these are all the applications that we've been building because we've achieved scalability, and there are pockets of lawyers that are independently creating these things. Some are for international. This is for an international bank. This is for global product survey, and this is a pharmaceutical compliance. This is tax. And all these things are happening. Some have been deployed over 2 years. So I hope this slide answers your question, and then I have the demo. So ArgoFlow is just a piece of it's basically an Excel where a trained lawyer would write down step-by-step process, basically the flow chart of the work that needs to be done, and then that person will drag and drop that into our platform, and then the platform will automatically construct an application and display the application. And I can show you that demo, and then
Sure.
They can see the input versus the output. And so we have lawyers using a split screen display. On left-hand side is the ArgoFlow, and then on the right-hand side is the actual application. And they spend hours sort of fine-tuning, either reorganizing the chronology of the steps or rewriting the sentences, so that it's actually an untrained user should be able to understand what it means and then be able to use it. And so there are basically three classes of applications that we've developed so far. The prescriptive decision trees, and the prescriptive decision trees are some compliance things, and then you can also do a big data analysis once you have accumulated an adequate number of click streams, and we can actually do a backward analysis of, for example, if there's going to be a regulatory change, we can find out specifically which department and who are going to be affected, what's the average percentage of the business that's going to be impacted, and then be able to create an alternative regulatory proposal, and then try to minimize it relative to the existing business, and then counter-propose it to the regulatory authorities. The legal risk assessment apps are ones where there's a Q&A, and then it'll actually assess for you how much risk you have as being characterized as in violation of certain regulation or law. So we have a tax residency and permanent establishment. We have also an employee status applications.
Cool.
And then,
are you going to show us the demo?
Yeah. So
cool.
Let me start with the demo. Okay, can everybody see this?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the application that one of the tax lawyers created, and what this thing does is, let me just walk through it. This thing determines the most tax efficient structure for a private equity acquisition of a Korean asset, and a multinational private equity acquisition of a Korean asset. So I'm going to assume it's Yosma, which is an Israeli fund, and it has a presence in the US as well as Israel. And then it says, are you trying to find a structure that's efficient in terms of dividend income or capital gains? I'm going to choose dividend. And then now we have a genetic algorithm-based engine that is working with the decision tree that a lawyer has created, that automatically can integrate the decision tree that the lawyer has created. So what has lawyer created? The lawyer has created a decision tree that determines whether there is an existing tax treaty between US and Korea, or Israel and Korea, and in order to apply the treaty, what kind of conditions need to be met. And so that's what the lawyer has done. And then
how much help do the lawyers need? How much help do the lawyers need to create those decision trees using your system? Is that something that you need they can do completely autonomously, or do you have to look over their shoulder? Okay.
They can do that completely autonomously, yes.
Okay.
And so now, so this is an animation that shows that this is not a neural network based application. It's actually a evolution based application. It's going through all kinds of different tax treaties. There's 93 of them, and there's many different provisions within the treaty, and it has found the cheapest one, but then it realizes that there's an information that it needs in order to finalize its whether it's true or not. So one difference about this engine is that this is a back-end information loading analysis engine as opposed to neural network where you need to have a very intensive front information loading. Um, so I can answer yes or no here, and that depends on what I know about the acquisition transaction. And I'm going to say no. If I say yes, then it turns out that the tax treaty that Korea and Israel has would allow for an exemption that results in a 5% dividend tax rate. So then it'll just end here. But I want to make it more interesting, so I say no. And then it immediately finds out that there's a 10% dividend tax. If this question is, I answer it to the yes, but I'm going to say no again. Now it has to look into the Korea-U.S. tax treaty because it knows that the U.S. tax treaty has one provision that could lead to a cheaper dividend tax rate than what I have ended up with in Israel, because I've said no to 2 questions regarding Israel. So in building this thing, I didn't have to type in if then, if then, if then. It's working directly with the information from the tax treaty. And now it has found a 11% dividend tax provision from US. And then if I say no, then in the US, I'll have to pay 16.5%. So then you would go back to the tax treaty that Korea has with Israel. So if I say no here, now it's looking at the tax treaty again, and then it finds out that between the tax treaty with Israel and US, the only 2 dividend tax rates that are left are 15% in Israel and then 16.5% in the US. So you just say, well, you have to pay 15% in Israel. That's the cheapest. So, and then one advantage of having a evolutionary engine for this type of legal reasoning is that you can see the intermediate steps. So you have these are basically the questions regarding whether the entity in Israel has a substance, or if it's just a paper company. So from Q5 to Q10 are the decision tree that the lawyer has created. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you just go through many different combinations of these until you find it.
Cool, Carl. We have about 6 minutes left. Do you think we could open it up for some questions from the group?
Yes, thank you. Please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Anyone here, any questions, or anyone online have any questions for Carl?
Scott has a question. What's IALEXA's approach to lawyers creating applications with programmers to languages, for example, Korean, English, EU languages, and especially to translation?
Okay, so one thing that's great about this type of approach is that I'm not really involved with the specific application development. And so most interesting issues just get elevated to me, and then we talk about these fundamental approaches. So having created the paradigm, now we are actually focusing on the algos, and we have spent a lot of time thinking about translation, and it seems that even from English to Spanish translation, there's a significant bottleneck because English as a language is much more precise, and there's words like blockchain or there are new words being created all the time. So one thing that we have realized is that just because the Spanish is language and English is language, they're not the same kind of language, and the gap is even greater when it comes to Korean versus English. And so right now what we're doing is very pragmatic approach, which is analogous to the difference between 3.5G and 4G. So no one has ever heard of 4G because people have come up with an off-the-shelf solution for 3.5G, which have come to be known as LTE. And then, no one has heard of LTA, and now we're off to 5G. So when a lot of people are thinking about how to create a perfect transition program, what we're doing is actually much more human intervention hybrid. So what we've been building is a assistant tool to professional translators, not the translation program itself. So we tend not to underwrite the fat tail end of the risk, right? So either we have a very descriptive and precise reasoning like this application where a human lawyer can see every single step in the reasoning, and we try to stay away from probabilistic approaches. First, because it's a crowded market, but also because we have a very hard time trying to describe and represent what we are not sure about.
Sounds good. So is IOLEX, is it a wholly owned subsidiary of Yulcon? Is it a separate company? Either way, is it a company that provides this service only to Yulcon or also to other competing law firms?
That's right.
And if you do, what's your business model?
Yeah. So first of all, it's Yulcon, CH.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. And then it's very young firm, but it's actually very because it's young, it's very, very thirsty. And one of the reasons why I joined was that the original managing partners, the founding partners, wanted the firm to be innovative. But then at the time, I told them that I need to keep all the IP, and I need to have a separate entity. And what we have is a service contract. So we're not exclusive to Yulcon. And what we have is that all the legal content that they provide is theirs, and all the IP, both software and the hardware and the algo, that belongs to IOLEX. And so now our business model is, our main business model is actually to work with major law firms to provide them with digital service alternative so that they can provide these to their best clients. And that's our primary purpose. We are not so much focused on B2C type of a legal service, which a lot of companies are doing. We're more into B2B.
Makes sense. Okay, on that note, let me thank you, Carl, for presenting your company and discussing with us. Please keep us posted.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind putting your email in the chat feature, then other people can be in touch.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Debbie, please put your contact info there. And if anyone has follow-up questions, please reach out to Carl directly. Thank you again, Carl.
Thank you.
Great to have you. And let's turn it over to Ian now, founder of Specifio and one of our latest non-residential CodeX fellows. So.
Yep. Thank you so much. All right. Great. Well, thanks everybody for being here. It's a pleasure to speak, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'm going to talk today, starting broadly about machine generated legal documents. Generally, let me see.
No, it's moving forward, actually. Yeah, sometimes it gets stuck in Zoom.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. Right, so I will start with just a high-level overview of document automation, and then kind of provide a framework for kind of understanding the technologies. I will talk briefly about the research that I'm involved with at CodeX, and if we have time, I'll also talk about a little more specifically what we're doing at my company, Specifio, around automating patent documents. So in general, what is document automation, also known as document assembly? This generally refers to systems and workflows that assist in the creation of electronic documents. So typically what happens is computers have access to text and they assemble that into a new document. That text could be pre-existing or it could be computer generated on the fly. Some benefits of document automation, obviously the reduction in labor needs for expensive attorneys. It also tends to be, at least the applications it's used for, it tends to be more accurate than human produced documents, so there's less proofreading time. The risks are really similar to any technology that you're using in legal. There's confidentiality and data security concerns. I think more unique to this technology though is the need to really understand it in order to take advantage of it fully. So in my risks, I've got failure to properly use the technology. And so that for an attorney is important, because if you are passing on these costs to your client and not realizing the full value of the technology, then your client is potentially being overcharged. There's also the kind of improper reliance or over-reliance due to a misunderstanding of the technologies. Document automation in legal is exploding right now. So in the Stanford Legal Tech Index, there's around 250 legal document automation companies that are listed, and they really span all areas of legal. And as I mentioned at the bottom of the slide, this is all really part of a larger trend. We're seeing this level of activity around document automation really across all industries. So to understand this technology and to, I think that there's a basic understanding that's needed in order to assess these technologies, decide whether they're a fit for your practice, and then also take advantage of them if they are incorporated in your workflows. And what I like to do is, I guess, think like a computational linguist. And what one of these scientists might do is dissect legal documents based on the type of content. And in legal, there's really three main categories of content. There's bespoke writing, mechanical writing, and canned text. So I'm going to talk briefly about each of these. So bespoke writing, that's where attorneys are adding a ton of value. That's where they're relying on their expertise and their training, their knowledge of the client, and really the most impactful part of these documents in general. Bespoke writing often will include original analysis on unique facts and be the type of writing that's really too nuanced to be automated with today's technologies. So just some examples, some technology examples for bespoke writing. My co-founder, Kevin Knight, who's a professor at the University of Southern California, this first line is actually something he told me one time. The world's most advanced natural language processing and generation system by far exists between your ears. Language is something that was invented by humans. We use it to organize our thoughts and to communicate with others. Computers do not use words, they use ones and zeros. And so the expectation that machines can do bespoke writing is just not realistic with today's technologies. So the most relevant, I think, to bespoke writing, most relevant technologies might be recurrent neural network systems that can generate never before seen text, but these are generally in relatively short spans. And although they may look bespoke, they can get weird. You know, the longer the spans get, the more this generated text will kind of diverge into nonsense. But for short spans, they can be useful in some cases. Another newer technology is RNN plus a neural bag of words. So this is something that's seen in predicted text, so like Gmail's Smart Compose. It runs in real time, but it is limited to just a few words ahead of the typer's cursor. Moving to mechanical writing. So this is more of the rote and mundane part of traditional writing projects. It's typically driven by convention or satisfying document requirements, not a creative part of the process, but really just kind of meeting requirements of the documents. This type of writing needs to be accurate and complete, but it is not something that requires a ton of mental work. So some examples, some categories of technologies relevant to mechanical writing. One is text transduction. So that's basically turning one piece of text into another piece of text. So in practice, you know, if an attorney was going to do this by hand, they may have a bit of text that they paste at different parts in their document and then massage that text to be, you know, read appropriately for the different parts of the document. So it's, you know, again, a very mechanical process. There's text extraction. So that's like locating and describing facts to provide context and support. So text extraction is where a system will go out and grab pieces of text from different sources. If you were doing that manually, it might be something like looking up definitions or looking up examples, you know, basically grabbing facts, putting them in your document. The third category is true text generation. So we see that in summarization. So like a 100-page document, a computer system can go through that, pick out the most salient points, and provide a short summary of the document. And then there's data to text, which we don't see a ton of in legal, but just to be complete, added it in there. So that's the classic examples of data to text are things like weather reports, sport reports, stock reports, things like that, where you're taking numerical data and expressing it with words. Canned text is the third category of content in legal documents. This is predetermined text. We often call it boilerplate. There, you know, even though there's no fresh writing being done with this, there is a labor cost associated with it. So that could be like identifying and locating the appropriate canned text, organizing it in your document, and adapting it to your current project. Some technologies applicable to canned text, you know, there's the old mail merge where you're basically just filling in blanks in a template. And then a more complex example is something that we're starting to see more and more of, and that is contract assembly. So you can imagine a lawyer identifying the type of contract and some basic facts and terms, and then a computer system going and grabbing standard language and assembling a contract around that. So different types of legal documents have different ratios of these different content. So for a contract, for example, I mean, that's definitely dominated by canned text. You know, nobody is rewriting, you know, kind of the classic clauses that we see in every contract. There's a bit of mechanical writing, you know, propagating certain facts throughout the document, and then maybe some bespoke writing if there's some new and unique terms in the contract. On the other end of the spectrum is like a memorandum. So in the case that it's original analysis being performed on a unique set of facts, that's going to be definitely dominated by bespoke writing. However, there might be some mechanical and canned involved with that. But most legal documents fall in between. You know, there's a decent amount of bespoke writing and then a lot of mechanical and canned text. So, you know, depending on the ratios of these different types of content, different technologies are more applicable and different approaches are more applicable for automating these documents. And in the case of documents like memos, where it's dominated by bespoke writing, that just isn't really a great candidate for automation in general. So just to briefly mention the research that I'm involved with at CodeX, it is on machine-generated legal documents, and it's a two-phase project. So the first phase, which is what we're working on right now, is to develop and perform a survey across a large number of attorneys, covering a broad range of practice areas, and identify the most common high-value, high-volume legal documents that they work with. Once we've identified these documents of interest, we will analyze them in a quantitative way to estimate the feasibility of automation in each case. We'd like to then make recommendations for specific technologies and come up with some ideas for what input and output might be expected from these different systems and different documents. I'm going to turn now to patent automation in the patent context, which is what I do in my day job with my company Specifio. So in the patent world, there are some document automation capabilities that are available. One is in application drafting. That's what Specifio does. Office action shell generation. So office actions are documents that go back and forth between the patent attorney and the patent office. So there's some automation around those documents. And then patent-specific proofreading, which there's actually quite a few products out there doing this. We have one, and there are several others. Some opportunities, I think, in the patent world are appeal briefs and post-grant documents. Super expensive to write, but I think a large chunk of these can be automated. So why does it matter, specifically in patents? You take a look at the plot on the left. That is the number of patents filed in the US per year. And you can see this pretty striking trend over the past 30 years of almost without exception, year over year increase in the number of filings. I plotted this against Moore's law just because, but it's we're in the innovation era, so I think that it's not likely that patent filings are going to go down unless the patent system changes drastically. Instead, I think there will be continued demand to drive these numbers up, and this trend is pretty consistent with other major patent jurisdictions across the world. The problem comes with the plot on the right. So this is what I plotted in this histogram is the number of currently active patent practitioners, so patent attorneys, binned based on their years of experience. And you can see this collapse that is happening right now, where there are just far fewer individuals joining this field compared to prior years. So in the 0 to 5 year category, traditionally, those are junior attorneys. Those are the folks that are the laboring oars on work like patent drafting. There are hardly any. There are half as many 0 to 5 year folks compared to the 15 to 20 year category. So that's creating some problems today. As far as efficiently generating patent documents. But it's
why is there a reason for that? What's that?
I don't know. I don't know the reason. I think there's probably lots of reasons. If the economy has been improving since 2008 or so, so maybe more engineers are staying engineers and not becoming attorneys. Maybe law school is falling out of vogue. I don't know. I really don't, but it has been a pretty dramatic change in the demographics of the patent bar. So it's creating issues today, but let's think 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road when these larger cohorts start to retire. There's going to be nobody to fill those positions. And so in a few years, we will have dramatically less patent attorneys out there with rising patent filings and price pressure going down. So if you think of practitioners as supply, patent filings as demand, and the fees that patent attorneys charge as fees, it just does not square with basic economics. So the answer, in my opinion, is technology to augment these attorneys. So just really quickly for patent applications include some bespoke writing. There's the patent claims. That's the most impactful part of patent documents. That's a list of numbered sentences that falls at the end of the document that very precisely defines what is the invention. So a patent attorney, when they're preparing an application, they'll typically meet with an inventor, learn about the invention, and at that point draft the claims. And then the rest of the document is really built around the claims to support them. Looking at mechanical writing, there's a ton of mechanical writing in patent applications. There's several sections in the document that are really have language that is derived from the claim language itself. There's also, of course, definitions or lists of well-known examples. Those are additional mechanical writing. And then, of course, canned text, like any legal document, there's plenty of that. So we can look at it all together. So with our company, Specifio, we are focused on everything but the bespoke writing. So we want to help manage the canned text and then automate the mechanical writing for these documents. So this is kind of just a high-level overview of our process. It starts with the practitioner. So the practitioner will draft one set of patent claims. So meet with the inventor, draft a set of claims, and then that's what our system uses as input. So we'll take 2 or 3 pages of claims and then generate a draft based on that. Our system will generate additional claim sets. We'll generate some basic figures and flowcharts. Corresponding descriptions for those figures. We'll create the summary, the abstract, and we can do all of this in the context of our users' own patent application templates. So what they get back from us should look and read, should be a very familiar looking and sounding document. Each section of our applications are complete and ready to file, except for the background section and a portion of the detailed description where, as you can see in step 3, we expect the practitioner to then take our draft and add in some additional example figures and corresponding descriptions and background. So just a quick conclusion on these topics. Legal document automation is here, and the adoption is increasing rapidly, especially in certain areas of law for certain types of documents that lend themselves to today's technologies. Patents are particularly ripe for automation. It's a kind of a process-driven type of practice, a lot of repetition, creating the same type of document over and over and over. Even if it's covering different subject matter, the documents are quite similar. And so I think that's why the patent field specifically is seeing a ton of activity around document automation. That's it. I would love to take any questions.
Cool. Thanks, Ian. So who's currently handling the mechanical and the canned parts of a patent application? Is that something that lawyers do or that their paralegals do?
That is something that I would say typically an attorney is doing all of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Neat. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone online? This is like so your company is already deployed at several law firms,
Mm-hmm.
and and what's the sort of the time savings that these law firms are able to realize using your document generation engine?
Yeah. So our system, our users report a time savings of about 5 to 8 hours per draft.
And how much is that in terms of the overall?
The documents are typically 20 to 25 hours. So for the right projects, we're turning a 3-day piece of work into a 2-day piece of work.
Oh, okay, wow. So that's significant.
It's enough to make a difference, and it's also the kind of boring part of the job, the part of the job that burns people out. So nobody misses this.
And so so is this like, so you want to corner the market for patent automation? Is there a future where either you see that you can also completely automate the also including the bespoke part? That's the first question. The second one, are you planning to expand into other areas of legal practice?
Yeah. So on the first point, the way that I think about AI and AI's role in legal is where there's creativity or judgment needed. That should be the job of a human attorney, or a human should at least be in the loop on that. Mechanical tasks or mechanical writing, that's great for automation. So for patent applications, I think that we could generate text that looks bespoke, but I doubt it would have the type of commercial value that a human attorney might have.
And do you think we'll ever get there, or do you think that's just...
Well, the reason is just the context required. A patent attorney is thinking about a lot of things when they're, for example, drafting claims. They're thinking about all of the precedent. Every patent case affects claim interpretation, so they have to keep all of that in mind. They need to know about the company's business strategy and how this patent is going to take a role in that. Competitor products, prior art, all of these things are floating around in a patent attorney's head when they're doing this type of writing. So I think that
it's super specific to the area of science too. A lot of the strategy, I think.
Yeah.
These people are often PhDs in some science or engineering field.
Yeah, definitely. And so the short answer is I think it'll be a while.
Okay. So what's your plan for the company then, though? Are you interested in like taking it into other areas of the law, or is the market big enough just for servicing?
So I'm a patent attorney by training. Spent 10 years in private practice, primarily at Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman, and there is a decent sized market for patent preparation. And so, at least in the near term, we'll keep a focus in the patent world. But maybe my research will show some great opportunities.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I was actually going to kind of tag on to that because I think I've heard some areas of patents, are just not like software, so maybe there's more activity and growth in the biosciences area possibly, but people are like computer science, they're kind of turned off these days.
There was a case that came out about 5 years ago that had an impact on the patentability of software related patents. And what it has done is made it hard to enforce bad patents and harder to get bad patents through the patent office. But there's still 1 out of 5 patents filed is a software patent. And the allowance rates are consistent with other groups. So there was some chaos, but it's starting to calm down. Actually, our company was issued our first patent a few weeks ago. Now I guess it's been a couple months, but the patent covers our core technology, and the patent was also written by our system. So that's
pretty cool.
Maybe autobiographical in that sense. Yeah. So we're pretty excited about that.
Does your system help non-legal individuals to file patents by themselves?
So that is one of the holy grails, I think, for this area. Right now, we require expert written input, the claims, in order to generate a good draft. But if we could go from like a plain language description of an invention to claims to a full application, that would be a major jump. But as I just mentioned, I think that will be kind of a tough thing to do. Right now, we avoid the unlicensed practice issues by starting and ending with an attorney. So everything we do is under attorney supervision. If we were going to, direct to consumer, we'd have to, I think, kind of rethink that.
I mean, theoretically, you could just, all the academic literature, a lot of it is in a database somewhere. I mean, you could just throw it all into a blender and kind of pull, if you're looking for prior art, that kind of stuff, is maybe the next frontier. I don't know, maybe that's too big of a space or the data is locked away behind paywalls.
Yeah, the prior art that the Patent Office generally relies on is patent documents.
Right, but there's academic literature too, so there's scholarship.
Sure, sure. All of that qualifies as prior art, but examiners tend to focus on patents, past patents.
Okay.
I have a quick question, just out of curiosity. How does it take for an average lawyer to learn to use the system that you provide and to get used to it?
Yeah, so
any strategy?
it's really a goal with this company to be non-disruptive. It's disruptive technologies, but we don't want to disrupt workflows. So we've tried very hard to not change the way attorneys work, just automate a portion of it. So they write in Microsoft Word, and we take that Word document as our input, and we provide back a Word document as a first draft. There is a learning curve, just because for a lot of people they're approaching the documents in a little bit of a different way. We typically say 2 patent applications. If we can get a user to get through 2 applications, then they get it at that point. So not too horribly difficult to learn.
Yeah.
So you mentioned they have to start with a trained, skilled practitioner. Is there any area that's especially critical where if they were to mess up, like let's say they write too vague a background, it kind of throws a wrench in the entire process?
Well, we're just taking claims as the input, one specific part of the document. The system is language agnostic, so you could make up words, it doesn't really matter. The output that we generate will be a reflection of the input we receive. So if you give us vague writing or writing that has grammar errors, we'll give it right back to you.
Gotcha.
We give a lot of deference to what the attorneys are sending us, and so that's how we're currently approaching that.
Gotcha.
So Scott Online essentially is asking, where do you see Specifio heading with patent translation? So if at all, and even as part of your business plan, so translation into one of the 300 human languages out there, one or more.
Yeah, so we, it's kind of funny, my co-founder, Kevin Knight, is one of the earliest folks in the area of machine translation. He kind of, his company, Language Weaver, built the foundational technologies for statistical machine translation. And so I've got a great expert for translation, but with our system, we're really only interested in a few different languages, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean.
The big 5.
The IP5, which makes up over 80% of patents filed in the world. So US, Europe, and then those 3 that I mentioned. So our core technology is built in a way that it will be easy to adapt to other languages. We're just treating words as symbols, so we just swap out a different set of symbols, make some adjustments on the grammar rules, and that should be that. As far as when we'll do it, not within a year. How about that?
Fair enough. Well, great. If you want to go ahead and type your email into our chat, and we will, I guess, wrap up and thank Ian. That was a fascinating presentation.
Thank you.
Just a quick announcement. We are, of course, wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving next Thursday, so we won't be here. But after that, the following Thursday, December 5th, we are having a lunchtime speaker meeting. So we instead of this meeting, we're going to have one a little bit earlier at 12:45. So hopefully all of you have received an email or go to law.stanford.edu/events. and check us out. We're going to have Amy Shoemaker from the Stanford Computational Policy Lab. She's a data science par excellence, and she'll talk about the latest on the Stanford Open Policing Project and what they're doing with the Nashville Police Department on that. And then our next group meeting is going to be December 12th. So we'll see everybody back after Thanksgiving. Take care.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the big five one more time? English, Japanese, Korean.